to day 11 of my 12 Days of Christmas Stash Busting Challenge. I'm creating as many Christmassy projects as possible with my forgotten Christmas stash. Do you remember this box? This is my stash of Christmas craft supplies, and this is the box they're supposed to fit into. Even after making gift tags, a bunch of Christmas cards, interactive mini albums, envelope flipbooks, and 4 scrapbook layouts, I am quietly concerned that my supplies will still not fit into that tiny box. That tiny box. That's a problem for another day. Today, I'm creating with this. The star of today's project is this very humble square paper punch, and I'm going to use it to create a feature element for my page. It's time to get started. I'll be creating today with Mittens and Mistletoe collection, and this one is perfect for all those paper scraps that you have lying around. The punch I'm working with today is 1¼ inches square, and I'm going to start by punching out a bunch of squares from some paper scraps. Notice that I'm holding the punch upside down. That's so that I can see exactly what section of the print I'll be punching out. It's a great way to see if your punch is aligning with the print on the paper, but it also is a way for me to avoid sections of blue in this print here. For this pattern, I want to make sure that I include a lot of those red stripes. I wouldn't be able to do any of this if I was holding the punch the other way. I'm looking for 5 different prints here. Be sure just to use what you have. 5 is a good number I've found to work with. Choose papers that coordinate with each other because they will be sitting side by side on the layout, but it's also a good idea to choose contrasting prints. I'm going with florals and geometrics, and I am being sure to include some of those papers that I find a little bit trickier to use. I am going to need 2 squares of this brown paper as well, because if you haven't noticed up to this point, we're going to be making a Christmas tree. These 2 brown squares will form the tree trunk. I'm not sure exactly where the tree needs to be, so I want to work with a repositionable adhesive. My ATG is perfect for this. If you don't already have a tape runner just like this one, you need one in your stash. I'll be sure to link it and all the other supplies that I'm using today in the description box below. I'll start by positioning the tree slightly to the right. I want to leave some space here on the left for my photo. You can see here that I'm already adjusting things as I go along. I've also got my T-square ruler very handy because there's no print or pattern in the background of this layout. I don't have a print here in the background to use as my guide, so I am going to rely on my T-square ruler to make sure everything is perfectly straight. So each row of the Christmas tree has 1 fewer square in it. So at this point, the bottom row has 5 squares, the second bottom row 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. And I was really feeling like it was too small. The tree needed to be bigger. So what I'm going to do is add an extra square onto each of these rows. See how the tree feels more substantial now? It fills up more of that background space, and I feel like it's in a better proportion to my photo. What that has meant is that I've had to shuffle my tree trunk back towards the right. You do want to center it on your tree. While I lock that last row into place, I am going to make some minor adjustments in the order of the squares. You want them to look as though they've been placed in a random order, but you also need to make sure that all of the prints are quite balanced on the tree. Keep in mind here too where your photo will be placed, because the photo is going to cover up some of these squares. I've added stitching for some extra detail, and I have just added simple rows that go across the tree. What I want to do now is curl up each of the squares. I'm looking to create a bit of texture here. Even if you decide not to do the stitching for your page, I would still recommend doing this step. It just adds this lovely detail to the background of your page. There is one other thing that I really wish I had have done for this layout. I'll get to that in a moment. Before that, I want to talk a little bit about the embellishments for this page. So photo is going to go on the left where you see it right there. And all of my embellishments are actually going to essentially decorate the tree. That was one of the things that really helped pull this page together quickly. Once I had the tree and the photo in position, I had already sorted out the flow for the page. I feel like the eye will be led from the top of the tree down to the trunk of the tree, and of course a little bit left to right because the tree does expand in that direction as it goes towards the bottom. I'm going to work with the chipboard pieces first because they really need to be quite flat to the page. I find if I want to add them later on in the project, it's a little bit harder. The other thing is that most of them were quite large, and I will always work with my embellishments largest to smallest. Here I am doing a sweep through the embellishment pack. Normally I would edit a lot of this footage out, but today I wanted to show you just how I do that. I start with the entire pack in one hand, and then piece by piece I make very quick decisions on it. If it's something I can use for this project, it stays on my desk. If it's something that I can immediately remove, I know it's not going to work, it might be too big, it might be the wrong color, for whatever reason, if I know it's not going to work, it goes into the bowl. I also kind of make it a rule that I can't go back through the bowl. I have to trust that first decision that I've made. This really helps me to focus on the things that I know could work. The other thing that you may have noticed is that while I'm doing that, while I'm going through those pieces, if anything stands out to me to have a place, sometimes I'll look at something and know immediately where it belongs on the layout. I will place it there, then and there. I won't stick it down, but I will position it where I think it should be. It's funny too, because quite often that is where those elements stay. I might audition them in other places, but I would say almost like 80% of the time, where they are first placed in that moment is where they stay. As someone who is a bit of an overthinker, it is actually quite nice and refreshing to press into that. Do you overthink your layouts too? It's so funny, isn't it? So while I've been chatting all about that, I have also been decorating my tree. I found a very cute bird to go at the top of the tree. And then I've got my title, which is going to be Happy Holidays. And then I've just grabbed a bunch of round elements, almost bauble-like, to decorate the tree. I have been avoiding anything that is too square because I want to keep my decorations quite separate from the tree. I am working with several prints here, some of which I'm not terribly fond of, so I am very conscious not to make things look too busy. I thought too that this would be the perfect project for these little dangling charm ornament things. Yes, that is what they're called. I'm going to turn them into Christmas ornaments. Now, I need to tell you what I would change. If I was going to make this layout again, I would have absolutely put some kind of mixed media in my background. Nothing crazy, but I would have added some Distress Oxide with a blending brush underneath the section that the tree is sitting on, just to kind of ground the tree a little bit. It is feeling a little bit plain, that background for me, and I think even just the subtlest amount of a mixed media in the background could have made all the difference. I'll have to save that for next time, but you can add it to yours. I hope you are playing along. Even if you're not sharing in the Facebook group, be sure to let me know what you're making in the comments below. I am loving how this is all coming together. Things are getting serious because I'm gluing stuff down. I need to add liquid adhesive to the back of these stickers. They have lost all of their sticky. I am going to stitch them down later, but I do need them to stay in place until I do that. The placement of the items on the tree is a little bit tricky because it does start very centered. See how the bird is centered and that title at the top, it's centered as well. But when I get to the area that has the photo, so the photos on the left, that area on the right, I do move away from a more centered design and try and make it more tree-like. I place the embellishments in the same way that you would place ornaments on a tree. You'll see there too that there is quite a large green circle element on the right. I've gone with a bigger embellishment piece there in an attempt to balance out the photo a little. When I only had small elements on the tree, the balance of the page was a little bit off for me. The other thing I'll mention here is that all of the embellishments on the tree are round in nature. That's because they are representing ornaments for the tree, but also remember we're trying to keep some separation between the tree and its decorations. I mentioned that earlier. It was time now to work on this base area of the tree. I was really happy with the top section, but the bottom felt like it needed something a little more substantial on it. The other thing I noticed was that the tree did not have a bow, and I am all about them bows, so I better fix that. I've popped it up on foam tape, and I am going to add some tape to the title piece here too. I really like how that's now nestled all together there. With the bottom area now looking much better, I can confidently go back and lock into position some of these other pieces. Before I used to record my process, I would actually stop the layout at this point. I would go away for even maybe 10 minutes and come back to the page and look at it with fresh eyes. I found that that was a really good way to make some final adjustments. I don't do that so much while I'm recording now, but what I will do is the moment that I will take is when I'm doing that sweep and gluing things down. I try not to think too much about the page and I just sort of stick and plonk and glue everything down and then try and look at it with fresh eyes from there. That's what I noticed here. That's a chipboard piece and it felt too heavy for that location. So I actually switched it out with a die cut piece. It is exactly the same icon, but the die cut is ever so slightly smaller. Yes, that's the kind of scrapbooker that I am. What do they say? The devil's in the detail? I am almost done here. I am going to add in this puffy sticker. I like that it's sort of a banner style, kind of reinforces the width of the tree there. It's a lovely pop of red as well. I switched up the holly here as well and actually popped it onto my hat. That left-hand edge there was feeling a little bit plain, but I didn't like the look of the paper strip. I felt that the paper strip was a little bit too much, but it needed something. I'll glue down these final pieces and call the layout done. Of course, I also want to share with you close-up images. I want you to see all the details of the paper squares there and the stitching, but then on top of that, those embellishments that look like ornaments. I hand-stitched those with green thread. I love the stitching on my photo and on the tree. Which print was our ugly paper again? I think I made it beautiful. It feels like Christmas Eve. Tomorrow is the last day of the challenge and I have saved the best project for last. Be sure to watch this video next for all the details, measurements and full step-by-step instructions. I will see you all again very soon. Until then, bye!